Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Janet Wallace, the editorial assistant for the Wildlife Society Bulletin, and I'm going to talk to you about formatting your manuscript in the submittal and review process. This is a repeat of an earlier webinar telecast because unfortunately our recording stopped right after the first slide. So I'd like to thank Carol Chambers for inviting me to do this talk, and I'd like to thank my husband, Mark Wallace, for making all the webinar arrangements. So my philosophy of manuscript preparation is based on this quote from my friend Eric Sampson. And here he go forward. Control. Okay. Authors should not be typesetters. We want you to focus on the scientific content of your manuscript. But if you follow some very basic formatting details, you will make our lives and the typesetters' lives very easy. So my first recommendation for you is to read articles from your target journal. This will give you a better idea of what the journal's content is, what their sub-focus is, and how they're organized. Please don't format your article based on what you see in the published form, because that's not what we want. But again, reading the articles will give you a better idea of how to organize your manuscript. Next thing is to read the instructions for authors. And these can be daunting. I'll be honest, the instructions for authors for the Journal of Wildlife Management run close to 60 pages. When we relaunched the bulletin, Tracy Bull and I created a very short mini guidelines and Word document template for bulletin authors. Runs currently a little over 15 pages right now. A good portion of that is how to format your literature cited section, and a couple of pages at the end on some of the petty rules that we would love for you to pay attention to right at the start, but don't worry about them. We'll fix them later as needed. So what follows are the basic rules that we'd like you to follow when formatting your office. These are the things that make all of us happy. So the first thing is your title page. Please follow the author byline format as presented in our guidelines. Your author byline is the affiliation, where you were at when the work was done. If you or a co-author have moved to a new affiliation, then footnote that. And footnote the email address for the contact author. This makes, if we have questions, makes life easier for us. And then double space all the manuscript text, including and especially the literature cited. Tables can be an exception, but we'll cover that later on. Next, follow the in-text citation format. We ask you to limit your in-text citations to 5 per instance, so use the most relevant. The format is going to be single author, last name and year. If there are 2 authors, last name and year. If there are more than 2 authors, it's the first author's last name followed by the year. And these will all go in chronological order, and then alphabetical order if there are citations from within the same year. When you get to the literature cited section, double space, please, again. Hanging indents helps us easily identify separate citations, helps me easily identify that it's in alphabetical order. And if you have multiple citations by the same author, same first author, that will be alphabetized following the second or third author as needed, and then listed in chronological order. Please list all the authors for every citation. We don't use underscores to indicate somebody's been repeated, and we don't use at all. And literature cited can be very complex. So follow the guidelines as best you can. If you have any question about whether or not something should be included, we prefer you leave it in, and we'll delete it if it's not needed. This, again, is easier for us. We don't have to track down missing information. A slide I forgot to present was about headings within your manuscript. The primary heading is bold, all caps, and that would be for your study area, methods, results, discussion, etc. If you have subheadings within that, the secondary heading is bold in sentence case, and then we have instructions in our guidelines if you go down to a tertiary heading. So figures. The text within your figure should be in sentence case. So the first letter of the opening word in uppercase, but the rest all in lowercase. The bulletin publishes color figures at no extra cost to authors, so I always encourage the use of color. However, if you're submitting to JWM, there is additional cost for color because it's a 4-plate printing process. Also, JWM is published hard copies. So my request for you, when you're creating your figures, keep the final published size in mind. The publisher is going to try and squish it down to a single column, which is just a little over 3 inches wide, or to the full width of the page, which is 6 inches wide, 6.5 inches wide. And if you create something that's different, they're going to reduce it or blow it up or maybe center it. But if they're reducing it, you will sometimes lose text readability. So I recommend that after you create your figure, you might play with it on a copy machine, shrinking and enlarging to see what the end result looks like. If you're doing a map as a figure, one of the things our copy editor will ask you is to include an inset that shows where your study area fits within the particular state or province, or where that fits within the United States or Canada. And this isn't helpful, but sometimes can take over the figure, so use your discretion there. But figures should include a directional north arrow, and they should include a distance scale bar. Figure captions are considered text. That's the portion that goes below your figure to describe what's happening. And so the figure captions will follow the literature cited section in your manuscript file. It's not part of your figure. We need your figures to be uploaded separate from the text because they go to different areas in the publication process. And the publisher would prefer EPS or TIF formats, but we've used others. As long as you submit high quality figures, we can usually make them work. Here's an example of a figure. You know, an inset state, got the north arrow. This one obviously fits the full width of the screen of the page. And I'm lost. So I'm going to go on to the next slide. Tables are also considered text. One of the things that a few authors have made a mistake with is they've separated the table caption from the table as if it was parallel to a figure, but this is incorrect. Please keep the caption with the table. The caption will go on top, the table will go beneath. It's best to keep one table per page. And you need not double-space tables. Sometimes tables are rather long, and if they extend past one page, they become a little more difficult to read. So if you can fit them into one page by reducing the spacing between lines, that's perfectly fine with me. The bulletin and JWM publish supporting information online with the final article. And this takes many forms. We welcome data files, and I think the tides are changing such that data files are going to start being required for some articles. We'll publish images that help support whatever was going on in your article but was not totally essential to the final article. Details. We had an article on adjustable, expandable collars for elk. And so the article gave good detail on what it was, but we also, online supporting information, gave very explicit details on how to build your own. We also have posted video files. There's an excellent video on misnetting harlequin ducks that was, I think, 2 issues ago. But bottom line, if you can put it into an electronic format and you feel it is of benefit to your readers, we'll get it posted to the online site. So my other recommendation, before you submit, have someone else read your manuscript. Quite often you're so familiar with the content that little things slip by you and someone else can catch them for you before you submit. We also ask you to compare your in-text citations against your literature cited list, because again, during revisions, citations get added, citations get dropped, and the two don't always coincide. And then for your benefit, make sure your co-authors go to the journal site that you plan to submit and see if they're registered. Most of the electronic submittal sites let you add co-authors to your manuscript data by use of their email and their email only. So if you don't have your co-author's email address, or if they're not registered by the email address you're using, you have to enter them manually. We'd like to save you that headache. Sorry. So I'll announce a few changes coming up. Dave Hocus is going to take over as editor-in-chief of the Wildlife Society Bulletin, and he will start taking on new manuscripts this week. He and Dr. Paul Krausman, who is editor of the Journal of Wildlife Management, are working to create a more distinct division of content between the two journals and look for editorials from each explaining what content they're looking for in upcoming issues of JWM and WSB. In the meantime, if you have any questions, you can feel to ask the editors, or you can go ahead and submit your manuscript to the journal you feel most appropriate, because if the editor decides it belongs in the other journal, we have a very simple process of transferring all your files and your data from one to the other. There are also a lot of changes in the publishing world. Electronic publishing is relatively new, and the early view posting of accepted articles fairly new. The Wildlife Society is working with Wiley, our publisher, to make sure we stay at the forefront of these changes. And they'll make announcements as the things are affected. So the next few multiple screens are what you will see when you log on to the Bulletin Scholar One site with the intention of submitting a manuscript. As a general user, you'll only have an Author Center and a Reviewer Center. You click the Author Center link and you will see the following screen. And these are all broken so that we couldn't fit the entire screen on one slide, but you will see on the lower right corner, click here to submit a new manuscript. To the left of that is a section that will give you a history of everything you've done, the number of manuscripts you've submitted and what their status is, and you can click those links and see additional details as needed. So when you're ready to start your submittal, you click that one link, and this is the screen you'll see, and it will follow the orange highlighting will show you where you're at. So step one, very basic. You select your manuscript type, enter your title, and enter your abstract. Step 2, attributes for the bulletin is purely keywords. And you will see here there's a box where you can enter and add your own keywords, or down below there's a very extensive list of keywords you can search and add that way. We ask that you enter at least one keyword and a maximum of 10 keywords or phrases. Third step is entering all the authors, co-authors, and their institutions. And again, this is where well, for starters, you can enter it as an author. Any of the authors can do it, or you can have an agent submit for you if you're lucky enough to have a secretary. Here's where you enter your co-authors' emails and click search. And if they are in our database, their details will pop up, and you can just click add to my author list. Sometimes this is a new submittal interface, and we are working to complete details for some people. So sometimes you will be asked to add more information for your co-author before you're allowed to add them to the list, but that's fairly easy. If they are not in the database, then you will have to add all the required details before you can add them. Reviewers. We allow our authors to submit names of recommended reviewers and submit names of people they just prefer not to review. We don't ask you why, but we do try to honor the, your opposed reviewers' request. If you're recommending someone, we definitely take it under advisement. Often we generally try to find someone else first, but we always keep them on the list, and they may or may not be contacted. It just depends how things go. Step 5, details and comments, is kind of the housekeeping section. It's where we get your cover letter, which you can also upload as a file later on if you wish. They ask if there's funding to report for the submission, and if there is, there's a new screen that will pop up. We ask about the number of manuscript pages and tables and figures and such, and this is just to give us a general idea of how long your article might run should it be accepted. Also, it tells me to look for however many tables and make sure that they're there. If there's a big discrepancy, I'll be in touch with you. Anything that has a red star, you have to check and answer. One of those things will be that you agree to pay $50 per published page should your article be accepted for publication. The editors are not allowed to give fee waivers. And I will state that if we transfer your manuscript from the bulletin to JWM, because JWM is a print publication as well as online, their per page costs are more expensive, and you will be given that detail before you are asked to agree to transfer your manuscript. This is where you indicate if you have supporting information, and we strongly encourage our authors to consider submitting an image or two for potential cover photos. We've been very lucky in that we've managed to use author-provided images for all of our covers since the relaunch. The next step is uploading your files. It's relatively easy. You are allowed to upload up to 5 files at a time. As you do it, you designate what the file type is. You'll see that the very first one is automatically designated as your main document file. After that, you can designate whether it's a figure, a table, if it's supporting information for online publication, if it's supporting information for review, but not for publication. That would be something like your cover letter, or if you had a related article you thought would help in the review process, you can upload that, or your cover letter photos. You'll see if you upload a figure, it's very handy for you if you would copy and paste your figure caption into the text box that they provide. That way, when your article files are merged to form the review PDF, the caption is placed with the actual figure. Makes it easier on the reviewers. But do keep in mind that we need the caption in the manuscript text. After you've uploaded the files, you review all of the information you've entered and review the PDF and HTML created versions of your manuscript. But you will see that the verification process covers everything that you've already entered. If there's a green check mark, it means you've satisfied the system. If you want to make changes, you just click the edit link. If there's a red check mark, the system will tell you what's missing, and you click the edit link to access it. All these steps. Zip through. Here's your list of the files that you've uploaded. Check it carefully. Once you've submitted, generally all you see is the main manuscript file, and people have wondered where the other ones disappeared to. They're still in the system, and I can see them. Then it says view the HTML proof, view the PDF proof. You don't have to worry about the Medline proof. I don't think one's ever created. I'll be honest, the HTML proof doesn't always look pretty. Don't worry about that. The reviewers see the PDF proof. But please look at every single page, because sometimes strange things happen. And if something strange has happened, feel free to contact the editorial assistant, and they'll be able to tell you if that's something that really needs to be fixed, or if it's something that will self-correct the next time you view the proof. Little things happen. You go ahead and submit the files, and you will receive an email that acknowledges your submittal and will give you a manuscript number, and it is of great benefit when you're corresponding with the office if you use the manuscript number. That while we can search on other aspects, the manuscript number is the fastest. So here you can reach author guidelines for both journals at the following URLs. You can reach me for the time being at wsb.office@gmail.com. That will be changing, but probably not till after the first of the year. And then
because this is a re-recording, we will now provide the questions that various members had asked. I will read them.
Well, you jumped ahead one bit. Sorry. Sorry. After you've submitted, and I apologize, I did not create slides for this. I receive an email that your manuscript is in, and I will check the formatting, and I will check all the data on the data screen. And with something I forgot to repeat earlier, I will be looking for an Animal Care and Use Committee protocol number or a human subjects protocol number if appropriate. And if your manuscript passes my okay, then I send it to the editor-in-chief for their approval. The editor-in-chief will approve it and let me know that it's ready for AE assignment. And I will do that, and either the AE or my colleague Tracy Bull will select, contact, and secure reviewers. Once the reviews are in, the AE will receive notification that the manuscript is ready for their decision. And the AE will either work with you as an author through one or more revisions to take your manuscript to the point where they're ready to recommend it to the editor for acceptance. But only the editors will accept or reject your article. And the editors may ask for yet another round of revisions before formal acceptance, but this is to help get it into better shape for publication. Once accepted, your manuscript will go through an in-house edit. And for the Bulletin, Tracy Bull is our in-house copy editor. For JWM, Allison Cox is their in-house copy editor. And those two women do fantastic jobs at taking care of the really nitpicky details. So to go back to the beginning, we want you to double space. We want you to follow the citation formats. We want you to create high quality figures, and we want you to keep your tables concise. Once Tracy has finished her in-house copy edit, she'll upload that version of the manuscript, which I will forward to you. You accept or reject the edits. We discuss it. Once we finally have a clean, agreed upon copy, I send that to the publisher. They will typeset your article, contact you fairly quickly with an email that will link you to your page proofs. And you will mark your corrections on the page proofs. I'm notified that they're ready. I'll add my corrections. I'll address any questions I might have for you. When you and I are in agreement, I send those corrected proofs to Wiley. They will make the final corrections and send me a new proof for approval. Once we are at that stage, your article will be posted to the Early View online site where it becomes available to subscribers. And now we'll take questions.
Okay, sorry to be overeager there.
No.
Okay, so we had several participants in the original webinar, which unfortunately did not fully record. So I'm going to pose the same questions. April asked, what kinds of topics are covered by the bulletin?
And I think I panicked on that one. The bulletin, we have a number of specialty subsections. From the field, our interesting notes, tools and technology, pretty much just what it says. If you've created a new program, a new way of trapping, we'll do those. We do original research articles. We are more for the on-the-ground managers. And again, Drs. Hocus and Krausman will be publishing editorials in 2016 to cover the division of topics between the journals.
April followed up asking about, well, what about education papers?
Definitely, the bulletin will take education papers.
Carol asked then, what papers get the most hits, are the most read or cited the most?
And again, I had to punt that one a bit. There is a publisher's report, and I can find that information later. There was an article on the use of lead shot and comparing lead and steel shot, and that's, I know it's been hit a lot, had a lot of hits.
What things do you most have to fix? You know, when authors submit things and you have to go in and fix it so it will go through the process. What do you have to do most?
Okay, I think the things that get corrected most, and I thank you for that question, Tracy Bull will address figures, changing the case, word case within a figure, adding the directional arrow, making the insets. Within the manuscript text, the most common changes are verb tense in the study area. Historically, study areas are presented in past tense, which can get a little awkward at times, and we're morphing into permanent locations and buildings can possibly be described in present tense, but when you're talking about the fauna specifically, we still prefer past tense because, especially in this day of climate change, that may change between now and 2015 when you're writing and publishing your article, and 2020, 2030 when someone's reading your article. The other big change would be in the methods section. We want you to use active voice. So rather than saying 27 antelope were captured, you would say we captured 27 antelope. And we did this and we did that. But again, those are changes that our excellent copy editors will make if you didn't get it the first time around.
Again, Carol Chambers asked about page charges and open access.
Okay, currently, as I said earlier, the bulletin charges $50 per published page. And if you want a rough estimate of that, 2.5 manuscript pages, double-spaced manuscript pages equals 1 published page. The journal is more, but if you access the bulletin site at the Wiley Online and you're a subscriber, you'll see little lock icons and they're all open. If you access the site and you're not a subscriber, you will see that most of the locks are closed, but periodically authors have chosen to pay currently $3,000 to have their article open to all readers. And this is one of the changes that the Wildlife Society and the publisher are looking at, and I know that they will alert the membership when and if this changes.
So I've created a bunch of R code to do the analysis that I'm talking about in my paper. Where does all that R code go?
R code would be considered supplementing, supporting information. You would upload that with your manuscript files. There's a spot for uploading that. And when you access the publisher's site, you will see there's a variety of links for the manuscript, depending on what format you prefer to look at it, and then there will be a link for supporting information. And if you access that link, it will list everything that you may have submitted.
A couple of more generic ones. So about how many articles go into an issue of the bulletin?
We have a page limit, roughly 220 pages per issue, and that has been of late encompassing 20 or so articles.
And what's the turnaround time from when something is submitted and when it might actually appear in publication?
That's a mean one.
Yeah.
Our goal is to have the initial decision to you within 3 to 4 months. You are asked to submit your revision within 6 months, sometimes faster if the revision requests are very minor. Once accepted, we hope to have our in-house copy edits to you within 4 weeks, and truly the publisher is doing a very good job at turning around the manuscripts once I send them the files. So if things are typeset well and everybody's on the ball, we can have your article up in early view probably 3 to 4 weeks after the files have been submitted to the publisher.
You've said it several times now. What is this early view? What is that?
Many publications do this now. If your article is accepted, they want it out for the public to be able to read. So they go by different names, but again, once your article is typeset, it will be available on the publisher's website, Wiley's website, not in a paginated issue, but in an individual file form.
How is that different from free access?
You still have to be a subscriber to be able to view it.
Okay. I think that's all that we had. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you all for being with us today.